All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll call this meeting of the Lower McConchy Township Planning Commission, the November 14th, 2023 meeting to order. First on the agenda is approval of the October 10th, 2023 meeting, excuse me, on the September meeting minutes. Does someone want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any additions or corrections? Just speak into the microphone so that everyone can.
So I have one minor correction on the minutes.
I only have them digitally here.
Let me pull it up.
You just want to make an adjustment on the vote, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Change to not an approval.
It was for which item?
Pulling it up.
Okay, so it was for the width of the sidewalk? On the barn? I thought it was for the. All right, so if you want to read that you wanted a no vote to reflect in that, it'll say the vote total was four.
So make an amendment where it shows, oh, sure, make an amendment on the 111 Granger Road modification of plan. It says motion as all in favor for the modification of the plan to allow 5-foot concrete sidewalk. So we're just making an amendment to show that my vote is not in favor.
Perfect.
That's it.
Sounds good. Are there any other additions or corrections to the minutes? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, first item on the agenda is the Western Lehigh 1500 Trexlertown Road conditional use approval. So if all of you want to come up and introduce yourselves as well.
Blake Marles on behalf of the applicant, Jake Longenbach.
Yep, Jake Longenbach.
And next to him, Bill Erdman, who's the site engineer for the project. We went through the proposed conditions of approval that was circulated by Mr. Jones yesterday and generally have no issues with them. We have some clarifications we'd like to go through if we can.
Sure.
On condition number 1, it talks about the comments in those review letters. I'd like to date them so we're sure we have the right ones. So the ones we have are the CKS letter from September 29, the Heinrich and Klein traffic letter of September 15th, and Mr. Jones planning memorandum of October 4. Okay. Number 2 talks about an access easement, which I understand was discussed at the last meeting. How wide is that so that we can do the planning for the land development plan?
Our standard path width is 6 to 8 feet in that area, or at least that's what we're hoping. So maybe 10 feet would probably be good to make sure for maintenance, to be able to fit maintenance vehicles down there. Brian, would you think 10 feet would be long enough? Yeah, 10 feet in width.
Okay, we'll gear toward that and take a look at it as we come through with the land development plan. On number 4, it talks about the berm adjacent to the mobile home park. And the suggestion is for a Class C. Two issues with that. The berm is not going to be useful there because the trailer park is about 4 feet higher than the property, so the berm isn't going to help a whole lot. We think maybe what might be more beneficial would be to be able to use the Class B design, but with the height of landscaping from Class C. So we basically create the height to create the visual barrier, but don't have the width, because as you can tell from the design of this plan, between the agricultural area and the berm and the stream, we're terribly constrained. So if we can not lose that full width of berm and get the height to provide the protection that.
We don't take
Probably
any
would
exception to
help.
that, Blake. If the berm can't fit in there, the key is the height, because obviously we just want to make sure that those residents
Yep.
have sufficient buffering from the active use. That's it.
Okay. Moving down to number 8. These are the times of operation. We've gone back and forth about this quite a bit. Under most circumstances, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. is more than adequate. There will be times when people come in as early as 6 o'clock to get out on the site or get out to go someplace else early in the morning. Will that be an issue?
This isn't hours of operation. This is noise. So disturbance of the site, engine idling, yelling, machinery movement. When people are coming in earlier and they're not causing a disturbance, then it's not an issue. The Board of Commissioners may want to talk about hours of operation when we get to the hearing. We just wanted to do at the staff level, make sure that we don't get complaints during those hours. And then as you can see,
Okay.
we actually already have the recommendation in there with the recognition that if there are extenuating weather circumstances, because we do know that they're taking care of, plowing and whatnot. If there's an ice storm or a snowstorm, then that would be off because of the extenuating circumstances.
Yeah, they have a pretty big geographic range for what they do. So in order to get to a work site in time, sometimes they have to get there earlier. But if the issue is just disturbance and not activity, I don't think that's going to be an issue. Number 10, all final site design architecture to be reviewed and approved by the Township Community Development Department. Is this to assure that the architecture is compliant with the design standards?
Correct. That's it.
Because if it is, you guys have had the renderings. Why not grant? That's a zoning issue. That's not a land development issue. We don't want to come back through a zoning process. Is there a reason why the renderings that were provided can't be approved so we don't have to be uncertain that there's a zoning issue?
We've consistently added it to a conditional use approval for almost every project since, because it just ties it in with conditional use as well. So, I mean, I will tell you that, thus far, we're satisfied with them. It's a standard condition that we've added for probably, we've added in at least a dozen or half a dozen conditional uses thus far.
Well, can we then not quantify it to say approved in accordance with the design standards of the ordinance? All right, and the final question is number 12, which conceptually we have no difficulty with. But in the land development phase, since we haven't done the stormwater design, it may be that part of the area currently shown as being actively farmed will have to be used for stormwater drainage or management. We have no difficulty saying that if it's not used for farming or stormwater drainage or management, we'll come back because we understand why you'd want that. But it'll be open space either way, but we just want to make sure that we can also use that land for stormwater management.
The intent is to make sure that a good chunk of the portion of land as testified just remains under active agriculture. But if it needs to be used for stormwater management and there's still some, then that's the point. It would be spray irrigation with the naturalized wet meadow planting mix that's being
Right.
used elsewhere in the township then.
Okay, I think there are only issues. Jake, anything else?
Yeah, that's good.
Bill?
I just want to give a quick update. At 2 o'clock Friday afternoon, we're meeting at the site with members from the Township Historical Society. I don't know, Nathan, if you want to be there, that's why I mentioned 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock on Friday.
We're meeting to take a look at the buildings, get a sense of what they're looking for as far as making sure we have on the plan what's satisfactory.
And they did photograph this site previously for the last development, so they have probably better pictures than they could get now because the
Yeah.
buildings have been sitting
Overgrown.
for a very long time.
by any kind of chuck. No,
All right, that's all we have. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone have any objections to those requests? They were relatively simple and straightforward. So we have a motion or suggested motion that has been prepared for us. I believe that you've seen all of those, which is what you just read through. With those changes, does anyone want to make a motion to move that forward?
I will make that motion. I'll motion to recommend approval for the 1500 Trexler Road, Western Lehigh Services conditional use, subject to the conditions in the written recommendation
With the amendments as, yeah.
the- the amendments. Recommendation distributed to the applicant and available for review at the meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Motion
Thank you.
approved.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is Mill Creek Point Apartments, conditional use.
While the applicants prepare, just so everybody is aware, for those who are watching from home and might be covering, this is a project that's been in front of the township now for quite some time. The last several meetings, staff, the township engineer, when I say staff, I mean not just the township community development department, but our inspectors, public works, administration, sewer, everybody has been working together jointly to prepare conditions for this potential approval here. Obviously, there's been discussions for quite some time about traffic and stormwater, as well as meeting our design guidelines and other design standards. The recommended conditions of approval that have been prepared are done so with, again, full complement of township staff, the township engineer, and then also reviewed by the township solicitor. So this is the recommendation that has been presented to the applicant, as well as what we recommend to the planning commission, and eventually also strongly recommend for the board of commissioners to consider at a future hearing.
Okay, thank you. My name is Kevin Fogarty. I'm the lawyer for the applicant. As you can see, we have four people here: Brian Gaza from Lehigh Engineering, Jason Damweber, Marcus Damweber, and Peter Spizak on traffic issues. We're going to do a little bit differently. I'm going to try to go through the list. We appreciate you sending it over to us today. What I'm going to do is we'll go through them one by one. There may be ones where some of the other gentlemen will jump in with some questions or comments within their area of specialty, as opposed to me going through all of them, because I think that'll be more productive.
And if I could just briefly interrupt you. So we have spent a bit of time on them. So if you want to stay kind of focused on each one of those items in an individual manner, not jump.
Oh, that's what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
For example, I'm gonna start with one, and I'm gonna go
Okay.
make my comments, ask if anybody has.
Great.
Or other people have any comments, boom, then the two.
Okay.
And right
Just
on
making sure.
through, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. On one, would it be possible, as it was noted at the beginning, this has been in the works for a long time, could we get the dates of the exact letters that are being referred to there?
We'll add the dates. That's fine.
But,
And
yeah.
apologies for that oversight.
No, it's no problem. Just so we know specifically what we're working off of. Two, I don't have any comments or questions on. I don't think anybody here at the table does. Am I right? Three, just to be clear, where exactly are these trails? And again, I know they've been covered a lot before, but just to be clear, because there's no cross-reference to a specific drawing here as to where you want these.
So I think one thing to be clear is ordinance calls for trails on all frontage, right?
Okay,
That it's important to note that. It was brought up internally. We do expect potential future development in this general area or connectivity needed. I understand that there's a section of the lot that's not under consideration for development. However, it was pointed out by other staff members, other department heads that, that's what the ordinance calls for. So, and then also what's also incredibly important is through the interior access point that's already provided on the plan that does go down towards the creek. We want to make sure that that makes its way so that the residents of this development have the ability to get to our township greenway. Our long-term plans are for the construction of a trail along the creek. So we want to make sure they have access to that amenity.
Okay, I think we get it. Any questions from Dan here at the
I
table?
don't think I would have an objection to that as long as that's talking about our residents as opposed to just having township people going through the middle of the site. Are you referring to the walkway along the nursing home?
Well, the only challenge with that is if you're going to list that as private property, it tends to be a bit of a challenge to enforce, and which is why anything that connects to the greenway, we do recommend a general public access easement trail. Just because you're going to have a hard time policing that when people are going back and forth. It's just a matter of fact that we know from other developments in the township.
And then the other question I would have is if you're talking along all frontages, are you also talking along Mill Creek Road on the east side?
That's what's been recommended by other staff. Yes. Because
Even-
it's that, or you're going to have to request a waiver or a deferral when we get to the land
The
development.
only reason I mentioned for two reasons is that I believe there's a trail on the other side or a sidewalk on the other side of the road. Plus, I mean, if you have a flat tire, you can't even replace the tire, like the swale starts right there. It goes right down. I mean, I don't know what in the world you involve with.
I would recommend then when you do your land
grading or
development,
everything.
I would recommend requesting then either a deferral or a waiver with a potential crosswalk connection point from up along Lower Macungie Road and present it to the township at that time.
But if I could add an emphasis to that, I mean, I think the trails are an incredibly important part to this. It's come up in multiple projects. And so
Yeah.
that gives you any insight of where I think we're leaning at least.
Yeah, this is more like a natural, I mean, not natural, but the actual design. When they did the Mill Creek Road extension, they immediately ran the swale.
Mhm.
I mean, it's.
Oh, I know
steep, but
exactly where you
I
mean,
already
yeah.
had a tractor that almost fell over
Yeah, yeah.
from the. The
Yeah.
Okay, number 4, public access easement. I mean, I think I get that one. I don't know if anybody at the table has any questions.
I think the only comment we had was, I had asked Brian this before, we weren't sure if there were any, trails that were outside the ultimate right of way already. I didn't know if this. if something
Your
comes
trail
to
that runs
mind.
down along the nursing home and then through the property down towards the road there, that would be outside the public right.
On a subsequent plan, we had removed that out of concern for liability, but, I heard what you had mentioned about putting the connector.
Yeah, that connectivity, I mean, with every single project that comes through, whether it's residential or commercial in the township, the trail connectivity is one of our number one priorities. So we have to recommend that, especially with the proximity to the greenway, where, our intent is to have a trail similar to along the fish hatchery at some point along the whole creek.
Okay. 5, I don't have any comments, anything from anybody at the table.
Right. So we have, instead of having people guess, we have somewhat prescribed buffers that help people in configuration of the design. When that gets submitted at land review, we review it to make sure that it's somewhat consistent. Class C, which you heard previously, is our biggest buffer. It's on a berm. And then there are larger, taller plantings that are included there for separation of uses. So something industrial up against residential, something commercial against residential. A class A is small, generally residential between residential, but if backyards are abutting each other. Class B is somewhere in the middle. And our attempt to do that there is obviously you have these units backing up to Lower Macungie Road, which is a busy road. It's to provide those residents with a sense of privacy, safety, security. So you're looking at, I think those are 8 to 10 foot evergreens. Or actually, yeah, I think they're 8 to 10 foot evergreens, and then a mix of shrubs also, so that there's no, open spots. The subsequent condition, we just wanted to make sure because of the power lines, and we do know that PPL does regular maintenance. We want to make sure that nothing's chosen that is going to basically get one of their haircuts to make sure that they can provide us with power continuity. And, you know, spacing and location is appropriate as well. So.
As a follow-up to Brian's comment, I just have a question, Nathan. What has already been submitted on the plans, between the both of you, I don't know if they believe that the Class B already is shown in most locations.
I think it is, and we do have, we've had the township engineer look at the specifications that are provided on the conditional use plan. It's just obviously when a land development plan comes in, that's what's getting reported.
Okay.
So we need to check it based off of that.
I just hadn't seen it before now, so I just want to make sure not to like a revamp of the whole thing, you know.
Okay, thanks. I think on 6 and 7, from my standpoint, the only concern would be, I mean, I get the drift of the power lines and communicating with PP&L. I don't want there to be anything though that comes out of this that somehow gives them they think they have greater rights than whatever may be their rights under the existing, whatever the existing easements are.
Just to
rights
be,
of way.
to be clear,
So-
we want to make sure that there's enough room for their maintenance crews to do their work. And we also want to make sure that there aren't any health safety risks in terms of power lines and fall zone radiuses for these larger poles. And, you know, as we have other properties in the township also over the years that have been developed around power lines, it's something that I believe the discussion has happened previously, but we've forged a relationship recently with PP&L. And one of the things that we've talked about, in addition to ensuring where we're trying to get power lines underground, which is per our ordinance, within land developments, we talked about sinkholes, the impact of sinkholes on poles, fall zone radiuses, maintenance areas, just making sure it's a health safety thing more than anything. It's just to make sure that those future residents and their property and whatnot are safe. So.
I get it. And we have no problem, obviously, working cooperatively with them, you know, to meet what you just, the concerns that you just expressed. Okay. Anybody at the table, any questions on 6 or 7? No? Okay. 8. I don't have anything. Anybody at the table have anything on that? No? 9. I guess on this one, the question is, like, what about some variations to the designs of the buildings that may not have been definitively finalized?
I would recommend getting them as finalized as possible before your Board of Commissioners conditional use hearing, because the reality of the situation is that's what we utilize then to check it when people come in and they file their building permits. We recognize that these are going to be, I believe, single entrance units that have the porches on them and whatnot, as the previous renderings have shown. We're not going to go down so much so that, you know, we're picking the exact color, but the color scheme, the material scheme, the roof lines, that's what the board's going to vote on. They do want to know what it's going to look like vertically as much as they do horizontally when they grant conditional use approval.
I think the concern that I had, like, whether it's the market, you know, that changes, if there's flux there, even obsolescence on the materials, you know, that things can change. And so I don't know if they have it that can be, you know, pursuant to township standards, or if you have an avenue that we can make adjustments when necessary.
I would say pursuant to the township standards, and if you have other ideas in mind, I would have an exhibit presented at the hearing that would, you know, be reviewed by us in advance prior to it going to the Board of Commissioners for review. We've been comfortable, the zoning officer and myself, we're comfortable with what's been submitted so far. So if it's something in line with that, it's not an issue. But if there's a large deviation, you know, these will be exhibits to the conditional use hearing. So
I'm bringing that point up, not in some sort of bad faith motive, you know, like it's just things can change as far as colors and whatnot, you know.
Well, yeah, there could be availability of materials too. It's,
Yeah, that's-
I mean,
Yeah.
I think we're kind of past that from, you know, what happened 2-3 years ago, and hopefully, you know, not going back to that, but that could happen. But I get your point. We'll just have to try to make sure that we've taken that into consideration with what those materials are and the colors. Okay. Number 10, I don't have anything on that. Anybody at the table? No. 11, just to be clear now, this is referring to the land that's on the other side of the swale, between the swale and the road. correct?
Correct. If you're ever gonna come in and do anything with that other than actively farm it, it would be another submission to the township. So.
Okay, and the reason I say that is there's a triangular piece on the other side of the road that's not actively farmed. That's not part of the farming. And to be clear that that would not be part of this.
Right. What we're talking
Okay.
about is the area that's active agriculture. As we mentioned to the last applicant, we just don't want to see those active farmed fields stop or go fallow. So
Okay, 12, I'm gonna defer to Peter on this one. I think there's a lot more intersections than we had gone through all the other reviews with here, so I'll let him speak to that.
Where the list of all these intersections came from, considering one, we've scoped the study with PennDOT. PennDOT was good with what we included. And two, the township traffic engineer has reviewed it and added added Lower McCungy Road and Crocs Road, added to the study. But didn't mention, the majority of these intersections. In fact, I don't know that South Crocs Road and Brookside Road actually, that's listed.
that's actually an oversight, sorry. But these
But-
these are from notes that actually, this has been from the staff level discussions. So our department heads have mentioned concerns about traffic in this area. Just want to be clear. We recognize that the general traffic growth in this area is compounding due to multiple applications in the general vicinity. There are more that are in queue. So it's actually staff's recommendation that we do as much homework as we can with this general area. So that's why everybody put their heads together and actually thought about these intersections as well that are going to be impacted because we have 180 units that are being proposed here and 1.5 to 2 cars per unit is a lot of trips. So
I'm just wondering, is there something in the ordinance that calls out the study area of the traffic study? Because the only thing that I found in the ordinance was that it should consider the perimeter roads adjacent.
So we were doing it based off of concerns about where trips will be going from after they leave the site.
No, understood. I completely understand. But by the time you get down to like Sauerkraut and Willow Lane, there's gonna be like 2 trips from the site that are impacting the intersection. So at the end of the day, the analysis will show that there's an increase of delay of maybe 0.1 second. I mean, I just don't understand the point of looking at all of these intersections. I mean, couldn't it just be that we discuss with the township traffic engineer and include those intersections as he sees fit? Considering we've already done that for the most part, and we've included one intersection, and we have looked at those intersections. I mean, this is a very significant list for a development that generates, 90 trips.
I think what we could do is we'll touch base with Andy Heinrich on this. I do know that we had department heads who had strong feelings about some of these intersections that are included on here that weren't part of the initial study. And they're department heads who have lived and worked in the township for many years. So we wanted to take that under consideration. We'll reach out to Andy Heinrich and prior to any hearing that's scheduled before the Board of Commissioners, we'll resolve this issue.
Thank you. 13, I think the question there might be, I think that's the entrance that lines up with the school.
Yeah,
And
yes,
just-
it
I
is.
don't know that the hope is that the median that's being required there doesn't somehow take that outside the way it lines up on the other side.
No, it's just the desire to have it vegetated and not pure concrete. So if there's a median that's going in, is it going to be, what's the intent for the median at this point in time there? The plan does show a median in between the two. Right.
The final configuration dictated by
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, one of the comments we got from PennDOT was to ensure that the 2 lanes. So if we wanted to put a wider median than what's currently on the other side of the street, it would probably misalign the 3 lanes.
Okay, the intent here is if there is going to be a median, it won't be pure concrete or pure hardscape, that there would be vegetation to it.
I
And
mean, the only thing that I might see out of that is PennDOT may ask us to mirror what's on the other side of the street. And if we have to mirror what's on the other side of the street, I don't know that that median is wide enough to provide any kind of planting. Because it's only like a 2-foot wide concrete median.
all right, well, then we could potentially add some language then pursuant to PennDOT approval, because obviously that's a third-party agency approval that we have minimal control over. Okay, but when the conditional use plan came in and showed the median, we generally require planted medians everywhere in the township, so.
Okay, 14, I guess the question there is, these guest parking lot spaces are already, they're not intended to be extra spaces beyond what we've already shown, right?
No, I mean, we're gonna do the calculation through the zoning officer, at the time of the land development plan submission. The concern was frankly, if we run into impervious issues and it's shown on the conditional use plan and you need to start reducing impervious space, we need assurances that that guest parking is gonna remain there because
Oh,
we've
okay.
seen that there's significant shortages in townhome and apartment developments when it comes to guest parking. And we don't want to see those lots be removed because of any type of stormwater calculation or anything like that. We need to make sure they're there. Otherwise, we're going to have a parking problem within your subdivision. I'm sorry, in your development, but also potentially on the side streets, if people take to side street parking. So.
I don't think we have any problem.
Okay, 15. Yeah, where,
Elaboration on that. We don't
Pardon me?
really know what that's.
So my understanding, and this is something that was brought up at the staff level as well, is that there is a lower section of land on field that is currently on property here or in this general area where there was supposed to be a dedication of land for the realignment of the road, Mill Creek Road. And it's down towards the south when these other lots were developed. And that land needs to be dedicated to the township so that we could potentially move the road in the future.
Just to clarify, if we're looking at the plan up there, you can see where the Mill Creek extension is. There's like let's say a paper road just north.
Yeah,
of
I believe
I'm
the
not sure
paper,
if they're talking about that.
we are. I don't think that that's come under full dedication yet.
All right.
So that we wouldn't have the ability to actually come in and build the road there right now.
Yeah, I mean, I had the original land conveyance agreement I brought along, but I don't remember. But the thing is, I thought that was given along with the entire track going up through where the Mill Creek extension is already, or either part of the 2 rough acres, south of that.
Yeah, I think that there's still something missing and I think it has to do with the conveyance for the road. So
Okay.
it
Well-
needs to be there just because if we were to put it on our capital improvements project or get a grant where we want to shift the road over right now, there's actually a couple of items in order that the township couldn't do it yet.
Yeah, I would have thought it was all done already. That's okay.
okay, so when that says as originally agreed upon, that's pursuant to that old land,
To the old land.
the old
Yep.
land agreement from 1992. Okay. 16, I think we're okay with that. I mean, I guess that's supposed to go all the way from where to where?
Yeah, I mean, we
Just-
could do as directed by the township, but again, this has been brought up by other residents who have attended previous meetings on this. It becomes an attractive nuisance during heavy storms and we're now going to have all those residents living close by. So, I mean, yes, we recognize that there are other residents and other developments, but this would be on the same property. So I would say at the direction of the township with the recognition that there might be areas where it might not be feasible or reasonable to do so. But we do need to make sure that there's a barrier. I mean, we could say from end to end, but that's the whole length of the property.
Well, that was really the question, like, and there's some areas where it would be brutal.
Well, there's some areas where it's wooded, right? And so if
Right.
it's wooded, it's less easily accessible, but there are some areas where it's entirely open and having seen it myself during flooding and storm occurrences, it's a significant water flow. And the key is making sure that no one has easy access to it, at least getting the deterrent in and that you have it posted that it's an attractive nuisance and potentially dangerous.
I would say, Nate, that if you're suggesting maybe in where there might be the heavier flows, like up on the north end there, that would seem reasonable to me, like to at least look at it. You know, like when we just saw this in the comment, we're thinking, oh man, from one side of the, from the north side all the way down to the south where Laura McCungy owns that land. Then the question would have came up, well, what would happen if people actually, or kids walked in and they're on the inside, now they can't even get out on a still, so maybe if it's in the worst location, like up where the culvert is deeper.
I'm going to advise that we do either the fencing or the buffering with discussion and at the approval of the township engineer and township staff. So if we find a reasonable solution and it's not ironclad that it has to be from end to end in the property, but it is going to have to eventually come under the satisfaction of the township engineer and township staff. And, we'll probably even have the township fire marshal take a look at it, make sure from a life safety perspective, it's protected enough.
So you're saying at some point, everybody's gonna have to go out there and figure out what are the areas
Correct.
that makes the most sense to do it from the safety standpoint. I mean, that's really the bottom line.
Yes, it is. I mean, and a good chunk of this area is in the floodplain. So again, there's that safety perspective of it, but it does run. We have heard it from members of the public and we do need to figure something out. We can't just not address it. So.
Okay, and then the last one, 17, I think we've addressed this, already with the school district. I don't know if anybody at the table has anything. I think Brian did.
I mean, we need something, we just need a letter. We need something in writing.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. For us anyway.
All right.
We're comfortable looking at
Yeah,
those
I mean,
modifications.
Right, and the modifications are fairly limited. They rely a little bit more on staff discussions, so I think we can move this along. Does someone want to make a motion for approval?
I can make the motion. I will motion to recommend the approval of Mill Creek Point Apartments conditional use, subject to the conditions in the written recommendation with further modifications distributed to the applicant and available for review at the meeting.
Excellent. Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All right, I'll say aye, and you're in favor of it? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion approved.
Thank you for your time.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
So as the next applicants come up, I just want to take a moment and note, I owe an apology to Attorney Durso and the applicants here this evening. I attempted to send the conditions on my phone as I was running around because we had internal discussions about circulating it and it did not make it to them. That is my fault. I do apologize. However, we do have the conditions here now printed out and they're the third applicant, so they've had a little while to read them. So again, my apologies.
So you have them in hand now, you just
I have
haven't
them
had a
now.
chance to thoroughly review them, or you have?
I think we're okay, but we have questions on a couple of them.
Okay.
But we did have a chance between all of us to.
Great, yeah, and I think just like the other projects where, I mean, we've reviewed this many
Oh, yeah.
times. I think everyone up
We're
here
gonna
is
cut to the
generally
chase.
familiar, so you can go right into those
Absolutely.
and we'll get started.
Absolutely. Okay, so the first one,
And if you could just, for the record, just
Oh,
introduce
sorry.
everyone. Thank you.
Tony Ganguza.
Kate Durso.
Jeff Bevan.
And Pete Spizak.
Thank you.
Okay, so for the first one, just so that we make sure we have all the letters, they're all 11-9, I believe. Township Engineer, Community Development, they're all 11-9 letters we're talking about.
Yep.
Right? Okay. Because even Andy's is 11-9. Right? Okay, good. Right. Okay, then just for number two, and I think, I don't know that we need language, just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Mhm.
So when we got the conditional use approval, it was for us to also have the curbing. We now have a waiver for the curbing. So I'm assuming if we grant, the waiver is granted, it satisfies the fact that we're meeting all the other conditions of the conditional use. That makes sense.
Because that was granted by PennDOT. That's the.
So, yeah, so that won't,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wait, when you say number two, do you mean you're talking about condition number
Yeah,
two?
Yeah, so condition number two says we have to construct everything in conformity with the conditional use
Uh,
decision.
Understood.
That's all
Yeah,
I'm saying.
third-party approval changes
Yeah,
that.
that's what I thought. And we're
Yeah.
getting a waiver on the next page. I didn't think we needed to. I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page. Okay. And I didn't want to, like, that we were misrepresenting it. Okay. Number 6, for the public access easement for the trails, we're assuming that you don't want any kind of easement for going around the base, that it's just for the trails that, maybe you can- with the pointer.
Yeah, it's up here on the plan right now. So,
Yeah.
okay, so just to be clear, I mean, there's the trail within the right of way here.
Yep.
Okay, there's
Yep.
the trail that runs along the private road, which
Yes.
could or could not eventually extend in the future. We do not know.
Correct.
It is not shown, but obviously we do have greenway space down here, but it does go towards the golf course. I'm going to tell you exactly what we told the prior applicants. If someone is walking along the street and hikes up the hill to walk around the basin and hang out in the gazebo, it is going to be very hard to police. As you know, trails are incredibly important. I just said it 3 times previously. We do not know how you would police someone basically walking on the township property,
Oh.
going across the street and then taking a stroll around your basin.
That's, my intention is not the policing aspect of it, is that, are you asking us to record against the property just a general easement that says,
The main
They
intent
have
is the
public
one along the
access.
private road there,
Okay.
but it brought up another point, some level of recognition that there would be public access to that, I think is important, just because it's going to be challenging to police it. And obviously, if we get calls, we can't send anybody out. It's on private property. Around the basin.
yeah, I think I understand what you're saying about the policing aspect of it, but for someone to record a blanket easement is not what you're asking.
We're not asking for it
Okay.
there. I'm only asking for it along.
That's all. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I understand about. the
We just
policing
want to get it,
aspect.
I want to get it on the record, and we'll probably say it during the conditional use too. I mean, we're advocating, we appreciate the trail around the basin.
We already had conditions.
I'm at the land development approval. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I'm like, we're not
It's
going
been a
backwards.
day.
Not going backwards, Nate. No, I got you. And when we're not against it, I just wanted to make sure Mark understands what I'm saying. I don't want us just to record a blanket easement.
Right.
We certainly want to make sure that the access that's intended with those is going to be provided. I just want to make sure we weren't thinking blanket easement, but we're not. So we're good. Okay. 10. So this was the first time we were seeing about being asked to put another sign in. And the issue is there really isn't any room for a sign at that entrance. So
Okay,
maybe-
I can speak to this and I can be very succinct with it. This comes from staff discussion with the most recent submission. And it's actually very, a common sense point that was brought up. For Uber drivers, for Uber Eats drivers, for pizza delivery drivers, for general Ubers picking people up, for friends who are visiting people who live here. The only monument sign is southbound or on the south side of the property over by the railroad trestle. If I'm coming from the north on Brookside Road at the speed that traffic generally travels on Brookside Road, there's a high probability that unless there's some sort of visual delineation that this is the driveway to get into this facility, people are going to miss it. And potentially drive into the private access road where there is only emergency access and it's private access road where trucks are coming out. So our concern is, how do we make sure that on a road where we recognize that people are, the general public is regularly traveling above the speed limit, if someone needs to make a left or a right-hand turn in there,
I understand everything that you're saying, but there's physically not a place to put the monument sign unless it's in the ultimate right of. That's the issue. If you blow up where we're talking about,
Mhm.
We have dual pipes coming through just beyond the right of way. They don't show up on this.
Right, they're here. They're right in here.
And the parking
And
is
the part,
there.
and the reserved parking is there too, so it's, the pipes actually continue behind the building as well, so. If we could maybe put driveway entrance sign or something like that, which could go in the right of way, a travel sign on the side. I mean, we're not opposed to putting another monument.
Yeah.
We just,
Can't,
where do you put
Yeah.
it that can be seen from the road?
Right.
Right of way's back 30 feet, and you got the dual pipes taking up 15 to 20 feet, so you're back 40 feet off the road that nobody will see a monument.
Yeah, and I recognize that now that you're saying with the space, because again, it's the culverts. However, that being said, you understand where we're coming from.
do.
We got to figure it out because when this is built, there will be people who miss the main entrance, not recognizing that it's the main entrance. There are going to be people who are trying to turn around into other driveways then. And the rate of speed and travel on Brookside Road is such that it could be a health safety issue. So we just want to make sure that there's something there that people know that's where to turn in.
what if you could put a big address on the building?
Address on the building is fine, but the other, I mean, we require that anyway as part of ordinance, maybe not a monument sign, another acceptable sign that could go within the right of way, just anything that
Okay.
is highly visible for the general traveling public. We request the monuments because obviously they look good.
No, I understand.
But you
We're
know,
just-
this is about serving the purpose of, you know, recognizing people are gonna be ordering pizza here. And
Yeah. Oh, no, I completely.
person's
understand
gonna
where
miss
you're coming from. But when we looked at it, when we just got it, we were like, I don't know where to put it. That was our problem. So we'll figure out something that's going to be able to get people into that access.
acceptable signage that'll be reviewed and approved by the
That's
township
fine.
engineer.
Okay,
community
may or may
development
not be a
department.
monument.
Yeah, we'll strike monument from that condition, so it's just
Thank
signage.
Perfect. So I think I'm gonna know the answer to 11 based on what you just told the last applicant. So we had gotten relief from the zoning hearing board not to construct the reserve, but now you're saying you want us to construct the reserve.
There's a discussion point about what the mechanism is going to be for the township to be able to enforce it if we see that there's an issue. So the zoning officer brought up a valid point, which is several years go by. Hypothetically, board switch, staff switches, but there's a parking problem there and we need to enforce it. Project's closed out. We're not holding security anymore. It's in the conditional use approval. We're worried about the mechanism that we would have to get your client to be able to get it in, especially if it becomes a problem. So how would you suggest that? Because the alternative is, you know, economy of scale would say you're going to be out there, you're going to be constructing everything at the same time anyway. You don't have to remobilize to do it in the future anyway. Is it just easier to do it now, even though you got the relief? The bigger issue is how does current staff or future staff come out and is it, do we hold maintenance? Do we hold security in perpetuity? Do we, you know, our issue is how will we address the issue when it becomes an issue?
Well, yeah, it's a condition, they can enforce it, but he's saying, how do they enforce it? 'Cause you're gonna have people living in. Right, like you can't hold up a permit. Understand what
I
you're
mean, shy of coming on the property and, you know, having the right to come on the property, construct it ourselves and put a lien on, which we
saying.
don't
That's what I'm
want to
saying.
do.
That's all.
There's no,
What do you do any other time when you have reserve? Have to have had it before.
no, we've just begun utilizing parking in reserve. And what we found is most people would just prefer to put it in the first time around because they don't want to have to remobilize and rebid it because of the materials after the fact. So we do suggest it. We do like it because we don't want to create more impervious surface that's
Yeah.
necessary. But what we're finding now is how do we enforce this 10 years down the road?
Does it help at all? In this case, if there is some concern about parking, does it help at all if we not construct the 16 spaces that are across the access, but maybe do the 6? I know it's only 6, but there's 6 reserved that are, if you scoot the plan up a little bit, there's 6 reserved on the west side. I mean, those are easy to construct now, and I would agree with you that from a practical standpoint, it doesn't make sense even not to construct them. So Does it make sense to put those 6 in now and hold off on the 16? in an effort not to
But I think-
overpave the road? I mean,
Well,
overpave the.
The only
property?
other option, the only other thing would be you just have to secure, and they'd have to hold that security for the
Oh,
other
we're not
reserve.
I mean, that's the
So-
only other thing.
That's
We'd
what
be
he's saying.
securing it, we'd be holding it until you put it in.
That's,
So is the reason that, what is the reason that you're concerned about it? Just, are you near your threshold for your NPDS that? you-
no,
Oh,
we just didn't understand it because early on, we specifically went to the zoning hearing
Hmm.
board.
Okay.
To
I
ask
see.
for it
Because of
because
controversy.
everybody was like,
You said that in the beginning.
Within the
yeah.
contract.
and
sorry.
now it's
Right.
like,
Yeah, yeah. No, you said it in the beginning and I just, when it started to veer in the
Yeah.
direction of, I couldn't tell where you were going.
yeah.
So
no,
it's a functionality thing, Wes. Basically, we support the parking in reserve. We don't
Right, I
want too
know.
much impervious surface, but on the flip side, we have been asking ourselves internally, how would we in 10 years or
Right.
15 years or
Right.
even 5 years, have a mechanism to ensure that this is done?
Yeah, no, that
Why
part makes
why
complete
can't you
sense.
Go to the owner at that time with the approval, and
well, that's what he's saying. You can do that, but what if they say no? Yeah, I understand what you're saying. He's saying because otherwise their only mechanism is a lien. I struggle with the purpose of why did we go to the zoning hearing board and go through all that trouble to
and
get,
expense.
yeah, to now have it be called in before we even put a shovel in the ground.
And I think putting in the 6 makes sense because it's in line with the others, the access drives going in. Putting those 6 in is easy, you're right. Logistical and trying to do it now. So that I don't think is a problem, but paving that other side where apartments these days just don't get the park. Don't. They're like 1.5, 1.6 spaces per unit. You only got 44 units. So to put up another 22 spaces when we probably won't use the 88 that
Mhm.
and take away green space from the people that are gonna live there, it's really not a good thing to do either. As much as it's not good to wanna come
Enforcement,
after us to
right.
do it later, it's not good to over park something as well, which is why we got the variance.
Can we keep the recommendation for now from the planning commission and resolve to have a discussion with legal minds about how we would ensure that it would be done in a
Yeah,
future
we can
point
figure
in
something out.
time?
Yeah, it's hard for me to react because I can't think of the way off the top of my head, but I'm sure.
Yeah,
we
and
can think of something.
it's very imperfect.
Yeah.
I mean, both sides are very valid.
Yeah, that's why we were struggling with it because we were like, because it's not the stormwater, because we had to design the stormwater to
Yeah.
accommodate that would be potentially put in.
No, you had clarified it in the beginning. I just, usually if someone's asking for something, there's a reason, but
Yeah, that's,
yours was, you stated the reason in the beginning. That's my mistake.
all right, we will figure it out between now.
Leave it as is for tonight.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yep.
I completely understand what you're saying. I do understand. Just don't have the answer off the top of my head right now. So for 14, we just wanted to make sure we understood where where you want this fire lane.
We'll tell you. Well, we can formalize it. I mean, just so long as you recognize it in the conditional use when we get to the plan phase or you make a submission, we know where it needs to go. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be to the written satisfaction of the township fire marshal. He knows exactly where it needs to go. So
Okay, but just so I'm clear, he's not asking us to put something new in. It's just labeling one of the things we have now.
labeling the area that's designated.
Okay.
We need to know where the life safety, where the ladder truck and the pump truck are gonna actually stage if they're at the site where the fire lane is.
Yeah.
And we also, for the painted curbing within the site, we just need to make it clear that, again, if there's a parking issue with the residents, they're not parking along there and then they have to come to a call and there's nowhere for them to go. They can't get through.
No, I understand all that. I just wanted to make sure that what we're not saying is that the fire chief's not going to come along and say, you need to move things around. That's
No,
all.
this is painting on,
Just paint it. He's gonna tell us
Yeah.
exactly what we have now, where he wants to paint.
yes.
Got it. Okay. That was it.
Okay.
That's it.
Anyone have any additional comments or questions?
No.
All right, well, it's been a long road,
I know.
but I think we're at the end on this one.
Good to see
Your
you.
road.
I'm not gonna be-
Yes, I know.
All due
It's okay.
respect.
We understand. So does someone want to make a motion to move this project forward?
I will
Yes,
motion.
We're
I will
following a
motion-
trend here.
Yeah, I will motion to recommend the approval. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Motion to approve the preliminary final land development plan for 3,500 Brookside Road, Brookside Meadows Apartments, subject to the conditions and the written recommendation with modifications distributed to the applicant and available for review at the meeting.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion? Hearing none, all of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
See you guys. Thank you.
All right. Moving right along, I believe that they are.
They're outside, our final appearance. Again, I should note as they're entering and everybody's switching here. So as they enter, just to be clear, we have Top Golf as well as Lehigh Valley Town Center. And just to add some narrative to this, because I think this would be helpful. They were submitted as two separate plans, as everyone may know. For those watching from home, just to be 100% clear, Top Golf is a separate plan, Lehigh Valley Town Center is a separate plan. What's currently before the township tonight, as far as the Lehigh Valley Town Center plan, is the access drive that comes in off of the bypass and Cedar Brook Road there, and the stormwater management for the site to accommodate Top Golf. So we won't be discussing the mixed use component or any of the other commercial components. It is the infrastructure that's necessary to build the Top Golf facility. The Top Golf facility plan includes the facility itself, its parking, and its landscaping. I should note that we've met now twice, and then the township engineer has met several other times with the applicants to continue to refine the plan to make sure, given the size and scale, that we're not running into major issues. But in speaking with the applicants this evening and earlier today, our understanding is they want to come in, give everybody an update. Review letters have gone out. I will note, from a planning perspective, the applicants have been working with us. Basically no comments other than will comply items. From an engineering perspective, there are technical items that need to get addressed, and we know that they're working through that. So with that in line, I'd like to, basically hand everything over to them, but I'd like the planning commission to be aware that there's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes, given the size and scale of the project, to make sure that items are addressed.
All right, gentlemen, if you want to introduce yourself for the record.
Will do. Eric Schock, Fitzpatrick, Munson, Buba.
John McRoberts from Pidcock.
And in line with what Mr. Jones said, there really isn't any planning issues. And I think it stems from the fact that this is the same plan that we got to before we went to the conditional use hearing. So the layout and all of those aspects of it were at or close to the goal line by the time we went to the conditional use. So there are engineering issues. There are a few items for us to walk through just to get some feedback from the planning commission. It won't be voluminous though, because a lot of this is just engineering, technical detail that we'll leave to these guys and leave me and all the rest of you out of it, because we would prefer not to talk about it. But other than that, unfortunately, at this point, it'll be a little more boring because it's the same one you've seen before. But we'll be back later, as Nate said, with the actual development portion. But the reason it's two separate plans is Jandal Land Company, as John will explain, is creating the overall kind of master development. And right now, we just need to get moving on the Top Golf, like we've said from the start. John?
Yes, so like Nate said, we filed a preliminary subdivision plan on behalf of Jandal. They'll be building
They're realigning Cedar Brook Road and Service Road number 2. There's an extension of a private access drive into the site to serve Topgolf, and it's set up now so that it will serve the future mixed-use development when that comes in as a separate plan for the mixed-use component. And we've got the stormwater facilities. They're basically serve the entire development, sized to serve Topgolf now. And there's excess capacity built in. So again, when we come in with the mixed-use component, that the pipe sizes are already adequate and the basin is sized so that it can handle some of the mixed-use development. We do know that it won't be enough to serve the entirety of the mixed-use development, and there are a couple different drainage areas. So there will be some additional facilities with the mixed-use component. But for the most part, we'll try to have all of our discharge routed to this single basin and spray irrigation on site for the infiltration component. So with the preliminary subdivision for Jandal, they will come back. There are a handful of outside agencies that are related to that approval. So the preliminary approval basically gives us the good feeling from the township that the township is on board with what we've proposed. We've got a long way to go with PennDOT, with DEP for the MPDS permit, and the other agencies that we need approval from. Once we get to a point where we're comfortable and all of the offsite improvements and permitting is to a point where it is static and we have some clarity to exactly what it's going to look like, we come back with a separate final plan with the subdivision. The final plan will show the road, driveway, any changes to the basin. So you'll get to see that twice. The Topgolf plan is filed as a preliminary / final land development plan. That is almost identical to exactly what you saw with conditional use. It's very unlikely that any of the outside agencies will have anything that would change anything inside the Topgolf plan. So we feel very confident that exactly what's on the plan now is going to be the final product, with maybe a couple minor items here or there, engineering technical details, but very much static and fixed. So we felt comfortable going in as preliminary final. We didn't think it was important to come back a second time. So with that said, there are a handful of waivers, 2 for the Jandal portion, 2 for the Topgolf portion. I can walk through those. We've reviewed them with staff, but we will need ultimately to get your recommendation on the waivers and ultimately the plan approval. So for tonight, we're looking to the Planning Commission to give us your feeling on the plan and the waivers. We've discussed with staff that we would go into what the staff refers to as the administrative review. In that administrative review, we would work with Brian's office and with Nate, go back and forth, make sure the technical comments, the boring stuff, I think Eric called it, we would get all those things hammered out. And when we're ready and we think we have a clean plan, we would make another formal resubmission and appear in front of the Planning Commission for, I don't want to make too light of it, but it almost seems to me like a formality vote that everybody was already comfortable with everything before we show up. So as far as the waivers, for Topgolf, 2 waivers. One is for slopes. The township allows up to 3-to-1 slopes. There's a small area of the site where we have a 2-to-1 slope between the building and the road. So we'll have to stabilize that. We're requesting a waiver to go to 2-to-1. It'll be stabilized and landscaped in an attractive, nice looking landscape. Yeah. And the other one is just for the preliminary / final processing so that we don't have to come back in front of you again with a separate final plan. So those are the 2 for Topgolf. For the Jandal plan, there are a handful of waivers up. I'm going to refer to the plan because I have a little bit of a blow up so I can point, and it might be easier to see exactly what I'm talking about.
And John, just one note on the 2 you went over initially. I think you'd see in your engineer's review letter that they had no exception to those waivers, to those 2 that are in.
Yeah, as far as the slopes go, I mean, talking about landscaping or doing something that will make those slopes maintainable. As far as just the 2-to-1 slope. The basins, typically, we've had this waiver a few other times where slopes are, the township requirements are 6-to-1. We've plenty of basins that are 4-to-1 with the township that are privately maintained. Township's not taking ownership and maintenance of them. Typically, take no exception.
And I think it's also important to note with this basin, that this plan doesn't show it, but it's gonna have a significant amount of landscaping. I mean, it's permanently wet basin, but around the edges, there'll be the landscaping, and then in the middle, you know, there's the expectation it's gonna have that fountain component, so it's gonna, while the slope is what it is, it's also gonna have the decorative components to it, so.
Right. And then for the waivers on the Jandal plan, those are specifically related to the roadway design where we're realigning Cedar Brook Road. So where Cedar Brook Road extends through the site, in the township engineer's letter, they recommended calling that Cressler Road to avoid confusion. And that makes referring to the plan a lot easier. So our Cressler Road extension, right now, that Cedar Brook is a state road. So up to a certain point, that will be it'll be a public road up to a certain point, and then as it extends into the site, it will become a private road within the site. So that the old portion of Cedar Brook Road can align and intersect in a small, tight right-of-way, and Service Road 2 can also intersect with Cedar Brook Road. We need a couple of waivers. Those are for the curve radii, where the township would require 200 feet for a local road. We're proposing 150 feet. And we've used an alternate design standard. We've used what we call the AASHTO standard. That's the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. They have a published manual that gives out highway design criteria. So that what we're proposing meets that criteria for a highway of this speed limit and intensity of traffic. The tangent to an intersection, on Service Road 2, we've maintained the required 200-foot curve radii, and we've got 70 feet left before it intersects with Cedar Brook Road because of the limited right-of-way. Normally, we would want 75 feet at the intersection so that vehicles are at a 90-degree angle before they make the turn. At 70 feet, that should be adequate to fit any of the design vehicles, and it's a very minor deviation from the standard. And then the intersection separation would be 400 feet for a collector or 150 feet for a local road. Technically, Cedar Brook Road is classified by the township as a collector road. It really won't function in that capacity once it's realigned. It only has the stone dealer, 3 residences and 2 cemeteries, and the self-storage building. So it really won't function as a collector, so we'd like to use the local road standard for that. Requested on the Jandal plan. We spoke with the township engineer. Believe there's no engineering objection to those. We'll have to work out with the township, and we plan on meeting with township staff to work out who will own the road. It was discussed at our scoping application with PennDOT. If PennDOT would like to turn that road back to the township at some point. So there will be further conversations with township staff as to if it's a township road, state road, or what portions are public and which portions are private. That'll be a future conversation. Other than that, we have 2 letters from CKS, comments from Andy Heinrich regarding traffic. We've got stormwater comments from Lehigh Valley Planning Commission. We can comply to the, maybe not exactly what is in the letter, but we're going to work out something with the township I don't think we'll have an issue reaching satisfaction with the township engineer on that.
As a, just a refresher, you said it in it and just picking up all those different numbers. The standard or the local road, I think is how you referred to it. The collector road needed 200 feet, but a local or a feeder,
So a local, for the curve radii?
Yeah.
A local road would be 200 feet. A collector road would be 300.
okay. So we're just
For
missing that
curve
one,
radii.
correct? And then the straightaway part,
Yeah, that's the separation between intersections, 200 feet versus 200.
right?
Straightaway is 75.
Hmm.
They have 70 there, and we acknowledge the alignment there is tight.
Right.
And then the third one is the curve of Cedar Brook being 150 feet versus, sorry, yeah, 150 feet versus the 300 that's required. But as stated, they are meeting, I'm sorry, 200 versus.
200.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's the
200
number that I'm
versus
trying to get to.
300.
So the 200, but the
That's the
revised would be,
Radius of the curve
right, and the revised number would be
the revised number would be 200, the requirement's
300, okay.
And they're stating that they meet ASHTO requirements.
So Service Road 2 has a 200-foot radii, and that's a local road. So that, Service Road 2 meets the standard, the township standard.
Mhm.
Cedar Brook Road is
It's
technically.
a state road, right? Okay, I
That's a
got it.
state road, but
Yeah.
technically classified by the township as a collector. So
Mhm.
we would have to meet the collector road requirements.
Got it.
And that would require a 300-foot radii. We propose 150 feet. And the alternate design standard that we've used is the ASHTO standard to make sure that everything it meets a safety standard. It's not a substandard. It won't cause any problems with traffic. The design vehicles can fit on there. It can handle trucks. Certainly anything of this
All right,
speed.
so if the road is downgraded in its classification, it's off by 50 feet then.
That's right.
Right, okay, that was what I was trying to
Yeah.
get to. Okay, got it. Okay. What questions do others have?
Well, for the dummies in the room, can someone just clarify what is the difference? What makes the difference between a collector road and a local road? I'm assuming volume, traffic volume, amount of cars that are going through,
Yeah,
right?
it's typically
So if
the
you
amount
have-
of volume and the destinations. So
So
usually,
if you're putting all this in there and, Cedar Brook is a collector road, but you want to downgrade the radius, how is that gonna? I mean, to me, that doesn't, I'm having a hard time getting my words out. I know what I want to say, but I mean, you're asking to downgrade the classification of a road where you're actually gonna be putting more cars through because of what is going in there?
78 blocks it from, that road
Yeah.
has a limited total access. And even in perpetuity, which is something that I always think is the most important thing to look at, is what's the future of all of these roads? But being that Interstate 78, yeah, well, I'm just saying 78 makes it so that really the amount of future development is extremely limited, even if you try to think way outside of the box. Interstate 78 probably is not going anywhere. So the downgrade is why I say, is why I don't think that is a big concern. I just wanted to understand how far off it is.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So,
Okay. That helps me. Thank you. Gotcha.
John, am I
helps. Thank
correct that the designation is
Yeah.
historical as to what it was?
right, the designation preceded a lot of the changes in that corridor.
Right.
But it is technically the designation that we have to meet when we do
Yeah.
it.
Thank you.
You would doubt that today something that served 5 lots would be a collector road, right?
Right, certainly it wouldn't if they were redoing.
That,
it.
that's probably the explanation that makes the most sense for your purpose.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is maybe getting a little further ahead. So the private road, you know, what we're calling Cressler, which turns into the private road, that will eventually connect to Shantz Road, right?
Yes, that's right.
And is the intent that that road is used for that purpose, or is it strictly access to all of the shops, residents that are eventually going to be built? I mean, is the intent that this will be a shortcut, or is the intent that, no, this is really just to access this? And the reality versus what stated is, I mean, both of those don't necessarily go hand in hand.
So, from a traffic management perspective, it's difficult if we have a lot of cut-through traffic not related to our development that we have to manage at the intersection of Cressler and 222.
Mhm.
Again, already a congested intersection. We're working through that with PennDOT as far as the improvements we need to make at that intersection to handle our own traffic.
Mhm.
Any off-site additional traffic to that intersection is difficult. We don't want to manage it. On the other hand, it provides a relief valve having that secondary access. You can get to Shantz Road and get to a destination. So
Got
it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Right.
But
'cause I-
it could provide a cut through. There won't be it won't be gated, there won't be any restrictions there when it eventually goes through.
Yeah.
Certainly if there is, if it's a longer route, people won't be taking it.
Right,
No-
exactly.
Nor will there be a sign saying Shantz Road this way either, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, not trying to push people that way, but like you said, what can you do if someone
Yeah.
knows the 2 roads connect?
Right, yeah, I mean, and obviously in your traffic studies, as this progresses further, Hamilton and Mine Slate slash Shantz, I mean, that intersection there is one that does back up, and I could see this being the natural relief valve. So I'm assuming that's all being looked at and how this will all configure. So it's private drive, but the reality is it's probably a future roadway.
Well, if you're concerned about cut through though, do you guys have any ideas for traffic calming, like like a median or something that might help slow that cut through traffic?
And I wasn't
down?
actually even that concerned. I was just trying to understand the movements of
Okay.
where it
Flow.
was going to go. I mean, I know there's a lot that's going on and it's clearly being well thought out, so it was just
Yeah.
to understand.
Yeah, so it will be open, it won't be restricted.
Right.
And we do have in mind traffic calming. We considered medians. It's difficult with the number of driveway openings and left turn lanes that we need.
Gotcha.
We weren't able to do the median. I think we've worked something out with it. I don't want to speak for Nate, but I think he's happy. We expanded the green space on the side of the roads. We've got an additional green space on the side, so the trees are a little closer to the street. And then we have an 8-foot path on the mixed use side, so we can have pedestrians and bikes. So we do have traffic calming in mind, and the radii internal to the street, it'll be signed for a low speed limit. So, you know, we're trying to make it feel like you're in development, in the shopping center, in the apartment complex. So hopefully it's not a safety issue with cut through traffic.
Okay. Got it.
Anyone have any other additional comments or questions? I know your goal was just to keep us up to date and all that, so I don't know that we need to take any official action.
We would just recommend plan goes to administrative review. I mean, the discussions are happening anyway, but that gives
Yeah.
them procedurally the option. And then when the township engineer is satisfied with all of our technical items, we'll be coming right back. They'll be coming right back, and it would essentially be time to consider a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners.
Got it. So you're looking for a motion to move this to procedural review?
Yeah. Mhm.
Anyone want to make that motion? Are we gonna follow line here? Do you guys want to jump in?
I will motion.
There we
I will
go.
Motion to go to procedural review.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Hearing any, motion carries.
And for the record, I didn't say engineering was boring. I said it might bore us who don't understand it. I
Exactly.
just want to be clear. That's what I was concerned about.
That's why.
We'll ask the questions to understand in layman's terms.
Exactly.
Yes, great. I like your explanation. Sometimes it does get us to
Yeah.
big stuff down to little pieces that we can make sense of. So,
Hey, thanks for
thank you.
your time.
Yes,
Guys,
appreciate it.
thank you.
All right, I think the only item that we still have left on the agenda, department reports.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to bring up this evening is more of a procedural matter. I just wanted to make sure because we are rolling into that time of year. And I do expect we're going to get submissions for a December meeting. Our December meeting will be December the 12th. I don't know between holiday parties and commitments and so on and so forth, if we would find ourselves in a quorum related issue or not, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew December 12th, 6 PM. And if you have any conflicts, please let us know ASAP. Because my expectation is end of this week, early next week, we're probably going to get a couple plans. So we'll have a need to meet. All right.
Nothing else? All right, motion to adjourn?
Second that?
No, you gotta make the motion first. Did you say second?
Yeah.
Oh, make the motion. Okay, you've made the motion. And there's a second.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.